Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Crimson Crossover Podcast presented by the Field of 68 and J&J Apparel. I'm your host, Christian Sykes, as always, joined by Charles Branch and Joey Blackwell. How are you guys doing today?
Doing all right. Three games down, and then about however many left to go. It's and not to mention we finally reached that tough stretch that we talked about in the preseason for this non-conference stretch here. So everybody better batten down the hatches because win or lose, we have six very very big games coming up, and it's going to be pretty much must-watch basketball for the next month.
Yeah, 35, 36 games left to go, I think, is what we're hoping for. And like you said, and we talked about this in the preseason podcast just the non-conference schedule. It'll be very intriguing just to see how we perform in these six games. If you're going to win a national championship, you got to win six games in a row. And we're going to be playing six teams that are all tournament teams. And we just got done playing two teams in Arkansas State and McNeese State that are going to be tournament teams, expected to be tournament teams by winning their conference as well. So we have come, full steam into the season, and we've obviously got a lot of things to work on. But excited that we are able to actually analyze this team and kind of pick through some things and discuss where we think they're going here in the future.
Yeah, and I will preface this by saying that I in the before we started the podcast, I did say it was six games, but there is a seventh game that isn't on the schedule right now, um,
Mhm.
in the
That's
players era. So technically it's seven games, and it is six straight road games or neutral site games. So Alabama will not be back in Tuscaloosa until, I mean, the players might be back in Tuscaloosa, but as far as the team playing, they will not be back in Tuscaloosa, I think, until the 14th of December. So literally over a month away.
Yeah,
Um,
it was weird seeing that Crimson Chaos tweet yesterday after the game. It was like, see you in a month. And I was like, holy crap, it's going to be that long of a time before there's a game in Coleman again.
yeah, I mean, the Illinois game in Birmingham, that's basically going to be a home game, but it's just crazy to think that the way the schedule's lined up, where you're not having a single home game for a
It's
month.
like it's like having a mini NCAA tournament. That's pretty much what it's like. You're not going to be at home over the course of that stretch either. So, and when we have, I think it's five of the six teams are ranked right now, and by the time Alabama and Illinois play, Illinois could be ranked. Who knows? Regardless, you have to be ranked in the top 68 in order to make the tournament. So that's where Illinois would be. So no, it's good to have. It's like you said, Charles. It's good to have this kind of stretch early on because you really can get a gauge and get a feel for how things are going to go in March.
Well, and I made the comment after the UNC Asheville game of I'm glad we scheduled this way because felt like there was the opportunity these guys could get bored, and maybe that's some of what we saw at times when we got our leads and didn't close out like we wanted to. But you can't take any possessions off in these next couple games, even if you do have a double-digit lead at any point, because these teams are obviously capable of coming back, putting runs together. There's a reason why they're ranked. There's a reason why a lot of them are picked high in their conference. So not only will we be tested physically, but hopefully mentally as well. And we are able to put a complete 40 minutes of basketball together in several of these games and gain some confidence, not only as a team, but for some players individually as well to gain confidence, whether it's on the defensive end, doing a better job of getting in the stance, stopping guys. And there's several guys we know on the offensive side that need to gain some confidence right now in their shots. They are taking the right shots, and I think most of the time are taking the right shots at the right time, but maybe are rushing it a little bit. And I think that's pretty standard what we've seen under Coach Oates. Just that you start of the year, it takes about 6 or 7 games for guys to really get accustomed to how they're supposed to be playing. And even though we have pieces back like a Mark Sears, like a Jaron Stevenson, Grant Nelson, they're obviously playing with new guys, and some of them are playing new positions as well. So you don't want it to take time, especially with the stretch that we're getting into. And I think even with it still taking some time, this is a team that is still very capable of winning these games that we have in front of them when they're still figuring things out. But it's not a finished project, and that's that's kind of, I think, how we would like it too. We don't want it to be a finished project now. We want it to be a finished project in March and play our best basketball in March and April of this year, or excuse me, next year.
This basketball year. This basketball
Yes,
year.
yes, thank you.
And
We
I'll
go by
say
we go by the academic calendar around here, not
yeah, the fiscal calendar.
yeah.
Well, and I'll say this: UNC Asheville, I think, is projected to be an NCAA tournament team too. So they're supposed to finish first or second in their league, and you've played three most likely NCAA tournament teams, two really good ones in Arkansas State and McNeese State. And I said this yesterday on the space that if there are two coaches that know Alabama basketball better than anyone, it's most likely going to be it's absolutely going to be Brian Hodgson, and then it's most likely going to be Will Wade. I think Nate Oates has coached against Will Wade 9 times. So he knows what type of looks are going to cause Alabama fits and give them issues. And that's a very experienced team that came into Coleman Coliseum last night, which it makes it tough. And then on top of that, you've got some crazy rotations, trying to get guys figure out kind of what their role is. Uh, 3 key contributors or expected contributors didn't get to play in the exhibition games. So they're still trying to work back from injury. You got freshmen playing that don't necessarily know their assignments fully, just because of guys like Chris Youngblood are out, right? Houston Millette, who we kind of thought maybe would give us some type of senior leadership while he's redshirting because he dealt with injuries all summer, and they didn't want to put him at a disadvantage for his final season. There's just countless number of things that kind of point towards the direction of, hey, maybe Alabama isn't like, I wouldn't say they're not the number 2 team in the country, because obviously there's a number 2 next to their name, but I don't believe that this is the team that you're going to see in late February, March, or April. This isn't going to be the same type of team that you're seeing. The players don't have defined roles yet. They don't necessarily gel within the system so far. So for everyone hitting the panic button, I'd tell you that, one, we're 3-0. Like, we haven't lost a game. And then 2, like, we played some really good competition and we're still trying to figure some things out. And I don't think that Alabama's going to be fully figured out until Chris Youngblood comes back, hopefully by the UNC or the North Carolina game.
I think what people need to realize too is that, I would have zero problem with if college basketball would adopt something kind of like football, in that, in college football, you have the CFP rankings, right? And the CFP rankings don't even start until there's like 6 weeks left in this season. Right now, and I know a lot of Alabama football fans have recently started watching Alabama basketball, which is, I'm glad that y'all are here. But what a lot of people need to realize is that rankings ultimately do not matter. They do not matter at this point in the season. They're not going to matter until February, really mid-February at that. And even then, the rankings in and of themselves don't matter. It's what kind of influence they have on where these teams are slotted when it comes to the actual tournament selection committee. So people that see a number 2 by Alabama, if let's hypothetically say they lose to Purdue this weekend, right? And let's say they drop down to 8 or 9. That ultimately doesn't matter, because they're still, if the season ended today, they would still be probably a 2 seed in the tournament, which is a pretty dang good seeding if I say so myself. So people need to realize that, yes, that it's nice to have that 2 next to Alabama. It's nice to have a 1 next to Alabama. But that high, being ranked that high, gives you a target that you don't want on your back this early in the season. So like you said, Christian, the sky isn't falling yet. We're still 3-0. It's nice to have that 2 next to our name, but ultimately that 2 won't matter until after the SEC tournament, the Sunday after the SEC tournament coming next year.
Well, and ultimately, if we're going to be really forward-thinking, the 2 doesn't matter until the very end of the season, right?
Yeah.
Because Alabama, I think, finished 3rd last year in the final AP poll. right? Because they made the Final Four with 12 losses, or 13 losses, mind you. Um, that's not me saying that we should have 13 losses. I'm just saying that's the reality of things. Um, Losses are expected to happen in college basketball. Tough games are expected to happen in college basketball. Heck, tough games happen in college football now, right? Um, it's just you gotta allow for some leniency with those kind of things, and you have to trust your coaching staff and you have to trust your players. And you have an All American player in Mark Sears. You've got an All Defensive Team player in Cliff Amori, and you got probably one of the best, if not the best coach, or probably not the best coach, but top five coach, I think, in college basketball in Coach Nate Oates. So just trust what they're doing and expect some growing pains, but it'll all work out in the end.
Well, and you think about it too, this is a team right now shooting 30% from the 3-point line. If this team, I will not be on the podcast next year. I'll just go ahead and throw it out there. If this team is shooting 30% by the end of the year, I just don't think that's the type of team that we have. I think we are a team similar to last year that should be able to shoot team percentage wise 35, 36% from three. We all saw what Jaren Stevenson did against Clemson in the Elite Eight game, and Jaren's yet to hit a three this year. He's rushing it a little bit, I think. I mean, he's had good looks, but kind of see some of that angst from some of these guys of just like we're supposed to be playing fast, we got to make threes and all that. I mean, the Arkansas State game was choppy as all get out with how it's officiated, and I don't think. Look, I'm not a big Pat Adams fan, but there were fouls early on, and they called it pretty consistently throughout, even as tight as it was, but it brought zero rhythm to that game. And then, of course, how McNeese State defended us with the press, with zone, with matchup, in different looks, that slowed us down as well. So you have certain guys that are, catching the ball and just got to get it up as quick as they can. And we're not getting into the paint and kicking out. In my opinion, it's a little bit more too much side to side action as far as passes where guys are then shooting a three or even shooting off the dribble. I mean, last night we shot 33 threes and only had 16 shots at the rim. We went 11 of 16, for 2-point shots. Like with the size advantage that we had against McNeese State, I would have expected us to attack the rim more or try to put guys like Cliff, Grant, Jaren, Aiden in spots where they could catch on the low block and score. So some of that's just, we're not shooting the ball well, and this is a team that I do expect to shoot the ball a lot better as the season goes on. I know Auburn fans are all excited about Aiden Holloway going 0 for 5 last night. He had 2 shots that were halfway down and out. Like that's basketball. That happens. But I'm not concerned about him. I'm not concerned about Jaren. I'm not concerned about other guys. I said last night in our group chat that I thought Latrell Wrightsell was a little shy as far as shooting the three. And then once he got it, knocked his first one down, he really got it going last night, shooting 5 or 9. So guys are trying to figure out their spots. They're trying to figure out their roles. Mark Sears is still doing Mark Sears things, and that's because like his role was defined early on. We knew he was going to be the guy. Other guys, even guys returning from last year, I think are still trying to figure out how can I help this team moving forward. Do I need to bring it on the defensive side? Am I one of those guys that contributes from the outside? How do I help this Alabama team continue to get better and excel to where we're in the position we want to be at the end of the year? And I think that's where a lot of guys are just trying to figure out basically through the game, because as y'all said, we had 3 guys out during the exhibitions. It's just a lot of moving parts, and there will continue to be a lot of moving parts until we get young blood back. But we do have it set up, during the December with some games that I think there's the opportunity for a lot of those things to come together against maybe not as good of competition that we're about to play, but it'll still be good competition getting us ready for conference play in January.
Would it be safe to say that everyone outside of Latrell Wrightsell and Mark Sears has a different role than last year?
Yeah. I mean, Grant was playing the 5 last year. Now he's playing 4 and maybe some 3 at times. Stevenson as well. They're trying him at the 3 spot. Diabate's role is probably similar to last year, but
he's playing the 5.
He's played some 5, but I think there's the potential for him to score more, which he has done, which was not his role last year as well. So and I don't think I'm missing anybody else. But yeah, those three guys, based off of last year, are definitely playing new roles than what they had. And again, talking about Aiden Holloway was told not to shoot at Auburn by Bruce Pearl. Now he's given the green light. Like he's having to learn how to play a different way, a more freer way of playing basketball. And of course, all the freshmen even though they've played AAU competition and played really good competition in high school, they're having to learn the college game within this Oates system as well. So I think it's a good point that of our team, the two guys that are really playing the same role as they did last year's basketball season are Mark Sears and Latrell Wrightsell.
And the reason I say that is, like, I mean, even you look at Cliff's not used to playing at the pace that we're playing at. I was talking to Blake Byler, and he was like, I don't really have any issue, because I said I kind of had some issues with how Cliff's playing currently. Like, I'm a little concerned. He's like, the only issue I really have with Cliff right now, because he's still learning the system, is he's about a half step slower than what I would like. And like that makes sense. That if that it just feels like he's almost there, but not quite there. I think he's a great shot blocker. I think at times he does get lost defensively. But that just comes with learning the system. And speaking of defense, which I think we've played pretty well, Brian Adams came in August? So these guys are having to learn a completely new defensive system in 3 months, 2 months, to, like, on top of learning most of them either not learning new positions, but being put into new positions. And for a lot of the team, making it a completely new system to learn. It's going to take time. And like I've said ad nauseum on the podcast so far, and Chris Youngblood, when he comes back, he's going to throw another wrench in that, right? It might be a good wrench, but it's another wrinkle that Alabama hasn't had to deal with quite yet. So just sky's not falling. It's not
Well,
falling.
I just thought about this too, and it was before we jumped on that Sam came into the screen. Where has Sam been these past 3 games? Has she been in the house?
Well, for the Arkansas State game, we were at a wedding. So we were at a rehearsal dinner. But I also wasn't in the house. So
Y'all are together.
yeah,
So
yeah. Last
Negates
night she was in the house, and then UNC Asheville, she was in the house too, but it was UNC Asheville. So
we figured it out. We're ready to go now.
yeah,
You need to get Sam like a she shed or something in your backyard, and just every time it's tip off, just be like, shoo.
well, for people that that are in the Discord, or in some group chats with me, that we're going through a remodel that we're doing ourselves in the house. Unfortunately, that's not outside of the house; that's in the house. But maybe there's some mojo in her little office space that we're gonna. Maybe I just lock the door and, like,
It's just bust a water pipe in your backyard, and then maybe
yeah.
oh, we should put a foundation here. Oh, here's the
Yeah.
little
Oh, look,
side
there's a
hut.
little hut for.
You had your own rising tide in that room, correct?
Yeah, something of the sorts. Whenever you lift up a bottom of the carpet, and there's probably about an inch puddle of
Ugh.
water. Yeah, I guess it's a rising tide, or whatever you'd like to call it. Um, but we got a big game this week, right? A pretty big game. We're playing in Mackey Arena versus number 13 ranked Purdue. Purdue, who went to the national championship last year, but loses Zach Edey, and then they lose. Is his name Jorgensen? Is that it?
Yeah, Daniel, is it Jorgensen or Jacobson?
Jakobsen?
It's Jakobsen.
Jakobsen, who is supposed to be the Zach Edey replacement. I think he's like 7'4".
Yep.
They lose him to the season for a broken tibia, which is just crazy.
That's unfortunate.
But they have another 7'2" guy, right?
Will Berg. It's a sophomore from Sweden.
Yeah. So it's not like, for whatever reason, Matt Painter likes to recruit really large men. Um,
Well,
so
if you're over 6'10" and apparently from north of Copenhagen, just email Matt Painter and he'll get you a spot on this
even
roster.
though I think Jakobsen is from like down south somewhere.
Oh,
Like
I
I think
wouldn't
he's from
know.
like I don't know if
Chicago,
he's from
which
Chicago.
I mean, that would be down south of Sweden, I would think. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
that's
close to
true.
being north of Copenhagen. Like if you're talking laterally, it's getting there.
But Charles, I think you did some research on Purdue.
Yeah, you talking about being a big game, and it is a big game. It's also really hard to be like, yeah, this is a big game, 13 versus 2, and it's on Peacock. Like, how is this not on Fox Sports 1, Fox, ESPN 2? Like, I understand.
NBC.
Yeah, I mean, I understand NBC's got the rights and they can do whatever they want with it, but it seems like a huge miss. I mean, and the fact that you're giving it, or you can allow people to get Peacock for free or do a trial to be able to watch this game, it just seems like it's a huge miss. But yeah, we coming off of last year, we obviously played Purdue up in Toronto, which was supposed to be Edie versus Bediako. Didn't work out that way. But we shot the ball really, really well in that game. And that was one of those games that, we were kind of reeling. We lost to Ohio State. We lost to Clemson. Expectations, the wind had basically come out of the sails at that point for a lot of people. But we came out, we played really well. They called every time we breathed on Zach Edey, even when he was in the paint for 10 seconds, they called a foul on us. There's the picture of Mo McGee with his jersey halfway ripped off, as he's at the free throw line. But I think that was the start, and obviously following that up with Creighton and then how we played in Arizona, where that team got some confidence that we can play with the top competition. And Purdue's got some guys back from that team, like Fletcher Lawyer, like Braden Smith, like Trey Kaufman-Renn. And I would say those are the three guys that are going to grab the headlines. They're each averaging 15 points a game. As a team, Purdue's shooting 43.7% from the three-point line, and Fletcher Loyler shooting 75% right now. So they've come out really firing from behind the arc. They're averaging about 85 points a game right now. As you mentioned, Jakobsen, being out is thrusting Will Berg to having to play more. But another guy on their team that this will be his 109th game at Purdue is Caleb First. Now he's only played in the first three games, he's averaged playing 7 minutes, but he's been in the system for a very long time. He's 6'10". He's a guy that I would expect them to lean on. I'm a little surprised, not knowing the inner workings of Purdue, that he hasn't gotten more minutes just with his experience. Maybe he's a little banged up as it is right now. But, this is a great test for our guards going up against Smith, going against Lawyer, going against Miles Colvin. We got to get out and defend. We got to know our matchups. We got to know if we're switching. We can't leave these guys open from behind the arc, especially with how they're shooting the ball. My hope is that with our depth, I mean, as Will Wade put it, they got two of everything. I think that's another advantage for us where I don't think Purdue necessarily has the depth in their second unit. Now, playing in Mackey Arena, state of Indiana, just basketball, I imagine that place is going to be rocking on a Friday night. So it is going to be a tough environment. And they've obviously got great players coming back from a Final Four run. The game will be won, in my opinion, between the guard play, Lawyer and Smith, and I'll throw Colvin in there as well, versus Sears, Reitzel, Philon, Holloway. Who can win that matchup? Who can defend well, but who can also score, when they've got their opportunities. And of course, I'd love to see Cliff take advantage against Will Berg down there. Will's only a sophomore. And obviously Grant Nelson and Stevenson, where we've got other matchups with our size, but this is a great test on the road in a hostile environment. I don't know if we've had a game like this early in the season where you're not having to deal with Christmas holidays and students being out. It's got to be a long, long time when we've actually played a power conference team like this in November on the road.
Well, and one thing I'm interested to see is the first three games that we played. haven't been against teams with traditional bigs. And if there's a team in the country that has traditional bigs, it's going to be Purdue. Um, and that's how they like to play. They like to play inside out, getting their bigs paint touches and kicking it out for threes. We saw that last year with Zach Edey. From some analysis that I've been reading, their paint defense hasn't been as good as in years past, and so I'm interested to see kind of what how we can kind of take advantage of that. But I don't think Alabama has been super efficient on the interior thus far this season. I know we were 11 of 16, but taking 16 shots against when at one point a 6'6" guy was guarding Cliff Amori. That's the efficiency I'm talking about. So sorry.
You all right over there, Christian?
I might have inhaled some insulation or something.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Hopefully not asbestos from an old insulated wall.
Yeah.
You guys kind of touched on, pretty much what I was going to. I was going to talk about Jakobsen and how he's out and what kind of impact. I expect Cliff to, I think a lot of it's going to center around, Cliff playing a true center or a true five. But I think a lot of it's also going to come down to their guard play, kind of like, I'm not going to try to repeat too much what Charles said on his breakdown, but I think a big player for them, which everybody talks about Braden Smith and rightfully so, but I think a big player for them really that has a shot to kind of be a tide turner in this game is Miles Colvin. He's really started out the stretch, really strong these first few games. He's shooting almost 44% from three. He's averaging, I think, 9.3 points a game. He also has I think he's just short of 4 rebounds a game. So even though he's a guard, he's able to fly into the basket and get rebounds, and he's able to get the ball out to where it needs to be. So if I just had to highlight one player, will he be their star at the end of the night? No, but I think he has the chance to be an impact player off the bench that's going to, help determine how these number 2 guys go up against each other.
Another thing we had to do against Purdue last year, and we had to do it against Baycott at North Carolina and Klingen at Connecticut, mostly any time where we played a really good big, is with some of our limitations down there last year, we were having to double a lot and then having to scramble defensively. I expect that we should not have to double a guy like Will Berg or Caleb First or Raleigh Burgess or anybody else that they're putting the paint if they're trying to play through a guy like that to kick it back out. I think if we're having to do that, that obviously is going to put more pressure on our defense, and especially when we know we've got some young guys that are still trying to figure it out as far as rotations and things like that as it relates to just how you play defense in college. So the ability for guys like Cliff and throw Aiden Sherrill in there as well, who I've been really impressed with the first 3 games. He's had a great motor. He's been very active both on the offensive and defensive side as far as rebounding. I even liked, the three-point shots he took against Arkansas State. He looks to have a good stroke, even though he knocked him down. I mean, if he can start hitting shots like that when he's in, it only is going to space the floor even more. But the ability to have a guy that can play one-on-one defensively and not have to have guards collapse to leave guys like Lawyer or Smith or Wren open for 3-point shots should be something that will benefit us in this game.
Well, and I think that you have to get some type of outside shooting from guys not named Mark Sears in the Latrell Wrightsville. I think Grant Nelson did a fine job shooting 2 of 4 last night, but Jaron Stevenson has to see one go down. Aiden Holloway, you have to get some shots from him. Darian Reed, I mean, he shot 1 of 3. I think with him, he needs to attack the rim more. I think he's being a little passive with that. And LeBaron Filan, I mean, he does a really good job of attacking the rim, but you just need some outside shots to go in, because otherwise you're just going to have teams be able to kind of sit in the paint and let you shoot, right? Not applying pressure. And And another thing that I'll mention with respect to kind of our 3-point shooting is the deep threes that we're taking are not efficient. I think Aiden Holloway took a 2 or 3 threes last night that were almost at the logo, right? The chances of you making that, and I know he's trying to shoot over players, so he needs a little bit more space, but you don't need to shoot from the logo. I think Mark's Mark. He's gonna make most of his shots, but I think he shot 2 or 3 threes again from the logo. He made 2 of them, but he still shot them from there, right? Um, it's about it's not necessarily about just throwing up threes to throw up threes. It's throwing up threes with an intent to make them. And I don't think that shooting from the logo is a shot that you want to be taking normally. I think that's a shot that the defense will be like, hey, if they make it from the logo, then they make it from the logo. So
You were talking about rotate early on, just talking about how we're figuring out rotations. And I know, the starting lineup last night was Cliff, Grant, Jaron, LeBaron, and Mark Sears. It's nice to have that luxury where you can play that big and have Jaron at the 3, but you're really limiting guys that can create a shot off the bounce getting to the rim. I know Grant can do it, but Grant has more success doing that when he's going against guys of his size and foot speed. What he did against Brandon Ingram for North Carolina, where he went off, in the Sweet 16 game. But against a team like McNeese State or a team like Arkansas State that's going to be undersized but have more quickness, that's just not his strength. And I don't think Jaron is at that point yet either with his ball handling that he's going to be great creating a shot at the rim coming from the wing or coming from the outside the arc, going up against a smaller, more quicker guy. So now you've only got two guys who are really able to get to the rim, but the defense is able to play off those guys, the other 3 players, and kind of pack that in a little bit more. And we're not trying to shoot our threes, like I said, off the dribble, stepping into it. We're trying to get a paint touch and then kick it back out. So that would be one, as it relates to what we are actually doing. I would like to see us go a little bit more 3-guard lineup, or more Darian Reed or Mo Diabate. At the 3, Mo could still be playing the 5, some on defense, but more maybe that 3 spot on the offensive side. Guys that can get to the rim, that can then kick it back out to shooters or finish at the rim. We never felt like we had a lineup of enough guys that could create their own shot at the rim last night, and that may have been why it was stagnant and the ball movement wasn't great, and it was more side to side than inside outside.
it also felt like they were trying to find a secondary ball handler last night. At times, Jaron Stevenson was running the offense. Grant Nelson was doing that at times. Latrell Reitzel was doing it. Aiden Holloway, LeBaron Filan, Mark Sears, like all of these guys were at times initiating the offense, and it felt like they were just kind of searching for that second guy. Latrell Reitzel is not going to be the guy that's going to be the secondary ball handler for this team. Latrell Reitzel is very good, but he's a catch and shoot player, right? We saw that last night. Jaron Stevenson, I don't feel like he has the ball handling right now to be that secondary guy. Grant Nelson, like you said, does, but they were undersized guys that are just as fast as Grant is. That's not going to be him. LeBaron Filan can be that guy, but I think at times maybe dribbles a little too deep and kind of gets lost. Aiden Holloway should be that guy, but he presents currently no, and I know he was 4 of 7 prior to the 0 of 5 last night, which, by the way, for Auburn fans listening, that would mean that he is 4 of 12, which is 33% from 3, which is a very respectable number. It's 1 point per shot for, again, Auburn fans listening.
Yeah, they need help with math, so help them.
Yeah. So I would say that like he could be that guy, but at times I think he's still trying to figure out his confidence. And when he misses a shot, he gets in his head. And that just comes with being confident in your shot, regardless if you're missing a shot. I don't think Mark Sears is super concerned about whether or not he misses a shot. He just is going to keep playing. Um, so until Chris Youngblood comes back, who I expect to be that secondary ball handler, someone has to step up. And I don't think it's going to be Jaron Stevenson. I don't think it's going to be Latrell Wrightsell. That's just my opinion.
Well, you bring and talking about Latrell, like Latrell's not a guy who really attacks the rim. As great as his free throw percentage was last year, being 100%, he only took 29 attempts. Now he did miss several games being injured towards the end of the year, but he's just not a guy that is driving to the basket. Like you said, he's a spot up, kick it out, and put it up from three. So when he's in that lineup, if you go with that big lineup and then Latrell's one of the guards, now you really are limited as far as who's a guy that can create at the rim and get to the rim to try to put pressure on a defense.
Yeah, and it was one of my concerns coming into the season was the finishing at the rim, the ball creation, or the play creation. It's just like you're either relying ultimately you're either relying on LeBaron Filan or Aiden Holloway, or maybe Darian Reed. Maybe Darian Reed steps up and becomes that guy, right? But for Reed, for someone that's such an inefficient shooter, and we knew that he was going to be an inefficient shooter coming in, he's not attacking enough. He's a big guy, 5-star guy, the fourth highest rated recruit Alabama's ever gotten. Get to the rim, attack, go after it.
And that's probably where when Chris Youngblood gets back and gets healthy, he's a guy just that's built to get through contact and get to the rim as well.
Well, that's what Aaron Estrada was for us last year. And I can tell you right now, if we had Aaron Estrada, this team would look a whole lot better.
Well, and I'm thinking about Brandon Miller. That took him a little bit to figure out as well too. Once he started playing better competition, and knew how physical he needed to be, that's once he got into conference play, he did a better job as well of attacking the rim. So again, that's just a learning process for some of these guys who haven't played college basketball or this level of basketball yet.
Absolutely. Do we have anything else? Did I miss anything?
I don't think so. Looking forward to these next few games.
Yeah, this one's gonna be a little short just because we only have the one game, because obviously we didn't do the McNeese State preview. Next week's is also probably going to be a little bit short just because I think we only have the Illinois game. I'm pretty sure, or do we have a game of that Saturday too?
No, we have the Illinois game, and then the next game is Houston on the next Tuesday.
Yeah. So
we want to give a shout out to the women being 3-0 and being ranked. I think it's 22 right now. They've actually got a back-to-back Wednesday and Thursday, playing Norfolk State and then playing Alcorn State at home, and then they get on the road, going to Louisiana Monroe on Sunday, and then they've got the Emerald Coast Classic coming up in a couple weeks. But this is a team that you've never seen a women's basketball game. Coach Curry does a lot of things similar to what the men are doing as well. They shoot a lot of threes. It's a very talented team doing things that we have not done or have not seen Alabama women's basketball do in probably 2 to 3 decades. So if you have an opportunity to support this team, whether it's the non-conference or the conference play, get out to Coleman Coliseum and support them as well. They're going to be fun to watch this year.
Well, and they'll be in Coleman when the men aren't in Coleman.
Yeah.
So if you want to watch some basketball, go watch the ranked women's team, because I don't know the last time that the women's team has been ranked. So no, that's no offense to that's no offense to the women's team. That just shows the success that they're having this season. And I think Chrissy Curry got their 200th win the last game that they played. So go check them out. Yeah, as far as our schedule, we'll have a post-game space on Friday, and we will have a podcast coming out next week just to talk about Illinois. Again, it's going to be a shorter one. And then we'll have post game space for Illinois. And then for the players era, we're just going to do one big podcast. It's going to be a longer one, just going over all the matchups. And we're not going to have post game spaces for those. Just going to go ahead and put that out there. It's Thanksgiving week. People are going to be spending time with their families. And I love you guys that listen. I really appreciate the support. But Thanksgiving's for family time. And I've always said that. So I think there's only been 1 year, which was 2 years ago, that I did a space, and that was after we beat, what was it, Michigan State? I believe is when we did a post game space.
And originally said we weren't going to do one, but we
Yeah.
played so well that it came together really fast.
Yeah.
Didn't y'all do one after we beat North Carolina a couple years ago during the Thanksgiving thing?
Yeah, but that was on a Sunday, so it felt
Okay.
like we'd already gotten past.
That was
Yeah,
the
sure.
same year that we beat Michigan State.
That was before I was on here. That was back when I was a lurker. I was still on the beat, but I would listen when I could.
You were a respected journalist at that point.
Yeah, I'm no longer respected. I'm just here.
Well, is that the same? Did that tournament we played? What was it? We played Iona. Was it Iona, Michigan State, UNC?
No, it's
I believe
Michigan
so.
State, Michigan State, Connecticut, and then North Carolina.
Yeah, you're right.
Before that was
Yeah,
Iona.
because we beat Michigan State. We lost to UConn, right? And then
Yes.
Was
Yeah.
that that wasn't the Phil Knight, was it?
Yeah,
PK 85?
PK 85, yeah.
Yeah.
We thought we were going to get New Jerseys. We didn't get New Jerseys. And then we got New Jerseys last year, so it all
Yeah.
worked.
Yeah. But yeah, that's kind of our schedule. But I am just going to put it out there that we're not going to do post game space. Well, the Houston game I think is on like a Tuesday.
Yes.
So
Mhm.
we might do a Tuesday post game space. If we lose, we're not doing a post game space. If we win, since it's on Tuesday, we might do a post game space. But for the rest of the games, we're not doing a post game space. I'll tell you that right now.
I mean, for Pete's sake, we don't even know who we're playing that Saturday, anyways.
Yeah, yeah. Also, that's Iron Bowl week,
Yeah.
which I think that will probably end up playing right around when the Iron Bowl kicks off. So there'd be no reason to do a space for that.
What's y'all's comfort level on the team getting on a flight? Everybody comfortable that we can get there start to finish from Tuscaloosa to Las Vegas to play Houston
Without turning around?
without turning around? You think we can do it?
Yeah, I think Alabama. It'd be kind of funny if like the social media team posted like a before photo and like an after photo, made it safely or something.
Yeah.
To
Can we get like a every 45-minute update of just where we are?
we'll have to talk to Steven about that. See if we can.
Yeah, just have
It's-
like a picture of the map of like where the plane is.
Yeah, yeah.
No incidents so far.
Or what they do is they like make a joke and they like do on the flight tracker, they do like a loop and like hit.
Oh, when Bama plays Auburn this year, if they beat them like in their first matchup, they need to have like a poster that says "grounded" on it or something.
Oh, that would be so sick. That'd be sick. Well, we'll have to talk to Andy Hayes about that. Maybe he can do something with it. Well, also because they'll be playing in the airplane hangar too.
Oh,
Yeah.
Just double meaning. Oh yeah, it's all coming
We
together.
that sounds like we should be cooking up some stuff for J&J as well for that game coming up.
I'll have to talk to Michael about that, but that'd be pretty sick. I think their only hesitation with that is they probably don't want to do a shirt for just a regular season game, even though they do it for football, but it's a little bit different.
You know how Luke started the tradition of the FBI jackets and FBI versus Will Wade? What if we started doing TSA for Auburn?
TSA, that'd be or everyone dresses up like pilots or something.
I'm telling everyone to not wear TSA apparel to the Auburn games.
Again, we'll have to talk to Andy about that. But I feel like something could be done there that would keep the joke going. But all right. Well, I think we're good to sign off after throwing some shots, but we'll talk on Friday for the Purdue game and Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
Goodbye.